The best fragrances to choose when you want to get into niche. I've always said to you guys in your collections that it's nice when you got a lot of designer fragrances, you kind of have fragrances for every occasion, different styles to choose from, but then eventually I do say go into niche, because niche generally is the best perfumery. In life, on most occasions, you do get what you pay for. However, you don't always have to splurge out huge amounts for niche. I want to give you guys some options that are affordable and are quite beginner friendly for experiencing niche perfumery. Some of these are very much affordable actually, even similar in price compared to designer fragrances. So today I have 8 fragrances, 5 for the usual 5 occasions we discussed on the channel, then 3 more for the interesting fragrance families to choose from. So let's begin. For your versatile option, go for Parfum de Marly's Layton. Layton, I think, is quite a beginner-friendly fragrance in general. I think it's quite a nice dumb reach for a niche fragrance. When you go niche, you want to smell luxurious, opulent, but you want something that's quite safe, people will love if it's going to be your versatile fragrance. From what I can tell, Layton still lasts about 10 hours, even in its new formulations from the samples I tried. That's my experience, guys. You might disagree with that, but I still think it's a fantastically performing fragrance. It's fresh, powdery, woody perfumery mixed with this really decadent gourmand apple pie scent profile in here with some slight floral touches and vanillic touches in here, of course. It's powdery, sexy, edible. This is a really sexy signature in general. And I think when you're getting into niche, you really want to upgrade your game essentially. And I feel like Layton is the way to upgrade your game. And it's a great way to get into Parfum de Marly in general, which I would say as a brand are more of a safe, mass appealing niche brand to go for. For your reserved, evening, intimate scent you might wear on a nice night out or a date, for example, go for Guerlain's Lomy Extreme. Now, some people may argue whether or not Guerlain is a niche brand. A lot of people don't actually know what the term niche actually means. It doesn't actually mean it's a brand that only makes fragrances. That's just not the true definition of niche. The niche basically just means simply it is a brand or a fragrance that's released to be artistically creative, not trying to be mass appealing and be a commercial mainstream perfume. That's simply what niche means. And I would say Lomy Extreme kind of fits that bill. It's quite an interesting, creative, complex fragrance, but that is still easy to understand and easy to love, in my opinion. This is a woody, boozy, ambery, the date night fragrance that has plum, almond, it has tobacco in here, so it has all these different aspects. It's gourmand, it's traditionally oriental in its perfumery, it's very addictive, warm, inviting, and it's complex. So I like these kind of middle of the range, designer priced niche fragrances that really give you something fun to smell. It never gets boring. And I get about 6 hours longevity with a softer projection, which is not bad for a date night fragrance. I think it's been reformulated, unfortunately. I think everyone keeps saying the Lomy line used to be more strong in general. But I still think this is a good enough performing fragrance. I think it's definitely worth the money. And it's one that's worth checking out. Don't sleep on this flanker here. A lot of people go for the Eau de Parfum in Lomy but I think the Extreme might be my favorite currently. 32% of people who watch School of Scent are subscribed to us. If you guys want to see our channel grow, to really help us out, click subscribe. Let's get that number to 40%. Thank you. Then when we go to the summertime, for summer perfumes, it's tough to get something that smells truly niche, but still easy to like. It's quite a tricky scent profile because there are summer niche fragrances you pay the high price tag for, but the longevity is poor, which is disappointing. So I'm going to recommend this fragrance to you. Memoirs of a Perfume Collector, Tales from Zanzibar. This is a super interesting summertime fragrance that combines tropical perfumery with woody ouds perfumery. It has got metallic muskiness mixed with a woody oud base as well as guava as a top note, and it smells tropical, marine-like. It smells like you're standing next to a beach eating a nice ripe guava. Photorealistic perfumery done in a really creative way is still easy to love. It lasts around 10 to 12 hours. Memoirs of a Perfume Collector are an upcoming brand. I think you guys should not sleep on them. If you want another summertime fragrance from them that I could also recommend, it would be Trouble in Paradise, which focuses more on mango, ambery, boozy notes for a summertime fragrance. Then sometimes you want louder, head-turning fragrances for louder environments, such as a club or a gig. Go for Alexandria Fragrances, Hafez 1984. Now, I would not say that Alexandria Fragrances as a brand is generally niche. They're more of a clone house. I wouldn't say that counts as niche, but Hafez 1984 is their original creation. It does have some similarities to Red Tobacco by Mancera, but overall I say it is an original creation. Spiky, ashy tobacco has intense character mixed with really sexy notes of boozy notes. with spices and with vanilla. So it kind of rounds everything out. This is a really sexy Middle Eastern-esque fragrance that kind of still has that Western audience appeal. This is going to be a lot of compliments and it's super loud. Loud projection with 12 hours longevity. 2 sprays of this, you fill up a room. So for 30 ml, you can acquire niche, mass appealing perfumery that's still very interesting for a really affordable price. Just get a 30 ml, guys. It'll last you a very long time. And finally, something for the office. Now, I wanted to recommend a fragrance that everyone will love. This is kind of unisex, but I just think the younger guys can rock this, older guys can rock this. This provides an interesting introduction to molecule-based perfumery. And that is Le Labo's Another 13. Definitely sample this fragrance first if you can, because it's quite easy actually to sample fragrances from Le Labo, in the UK at least as well, and I think in the US also. And I think Another 13 is their best fragrance. I think it is very sexy, and I think it's maybe one of the few fragrances I actually think is worth its price. I paid full price for this. I think it was around £180. So you're paying a bit more money for a 50 ml, which I think is worth it because 2 sprays, I can smell this on me easily over 12 hours, but at the same time, it's got this clean linen musks in here mixed with ambery notes mixed with woody molecules as well. It's very long-lasting, base heavy, but at the same time fresh, clean, and invigorating, and just super attractive. I always say this is sort of like the upgrade from Eccentric Molecule 01, which is just only Ice Sweet Super. So it's quite simplistic and minimalistic, but this has more going on. I think this could easily work in the office. It's super sexy. I think this is really attractive. I love the fact that it's very long-lasting, and also I think because it's quite simplistic, you could use this as a base to increase the longevity of your fragrances. So spray Another 13 on yourself first and any other fragrance on top of it for a longevity boost essentially. So I think it's quite useful in that regard. I think it's worth the price. Then I always say the 3 extra categories we go for is a gourmand fragrance, so a fragrance that smells edible, has edible notes in there, a fragrance that has oud as one of its prominent characters or introduces you into that style in general, and then finally a leather fragrance is quite useful to have. It adds more variety to your collection. You might be surprised by the leather suggestion, but I'm going to suggest to you Tom Ford's Ombre leather. So yes, it's a designer brand, but I would still consider Ombre leather niche. Again, remember what I was telling you earlier about the definition of niche. And plus, this came out when Tom Ford was more of a risk-taking creative brand. I actually think Ombre leather came out in 2016 in the private blend, and you can generally say the private blend of Tom Ford is going to be considered more niche in general, and then it got repackaged into their signature line, like they do with a lot of their fragrances. Ombre leather is a really cool and creative aspect that kind of introduces anyone into leather. It's quite a nicely well-rounded out photorealistic leather fragrance. It's sort of like they try to recreate the note of leather, like a brand new black interior of a leather car, and make it a perfume. They've rounded it out with a few citruses, a few spices, and some white floral notes in here, but it's kind of just rounded out in general. I think there's a bit of amber in here as well, but overall, this is a leather fragrance. That is the main character, and that's why I like its kind of focus on there. It kind of tells you basically, if you try this, whether or not you will like leather perfumery. I think this is quite a sexy signature that a bad boy could wear, or someone who actually wants to smell quite elegant. It has this distinct leather note, but it's also quite smoky and attractive in general. I get about 8 hours with a medium projection with my bottle. In oud-based perfumery, I'm going to recommend to you this fragrance, Penhaligon's Blazing Mr. Sam. Now, it's quite tricky with oud because if I'm going to recommend a beginner oud scent to you guys, you are generally going to go for the more affordable stuff. And with oud, if you go affordable, you mostly are going to get fake oud, not the real stuff. The real stuff is quite complex, actually quite tricky to get into. Penhaligon's Blazing Mr. Sam doesn't even actually have oud listed as a note, but I'm including it in here because this is very similar to Hafez, which lists an oud note, which I think is synthetic. I don't think it's real, and I think it's a similar thing here. I think they actually use very similar woody molecules in both fragrances. Blazing Mr. Sam to me is like the more modern, slightly livened up version of Hafez by Penhaligon, which is considered, I think it's their most popular fragrance in their entire house. A very traditional rose and oud scent, but here they've kind of livened it up. It's not as dark and heavy anymore. It's been more lively and spicy, ambery. It kind of has like a boozy aspect to it. I think this is a really sexy evening scent that kind of introduces you to a Middle Eastern-esque oud style, but at the same time being a little bit candied, I'd say. It's quite easy to love. I think if you actually enjoyed fragrances like Tom Ford's Plum Japonais, which I also think had a synthetic oud note in there, I would say that you will probably love Blazing Mr. Sam. A really nice evening scent in general, and I do think this is a great entry point into oud, oud. And then finally for the gourmand family, which might be the most creative fragrance family out there, I'm going to recommend Mancera's Amore Caffe. One of the most interesting releases I've tried recently. That smells incredibly sexy. They've done coffee-based gourmand perfumery in a really sexy way. You can see the notes on screen right now. You can see all the different interesting edible notes that I've mentioned here for, you know, for gourmand perfumery. Basically, Amore Caffe for me is unisex, but very creative, very interesting. You don't get bored of it. Has good performance, at least 8 hours with a softer projection. I think it's a really sexy evening or date night scenario fragrance in general, but it just kind of introduces you into gourmand perfumery in general. It might be one of Mancera's best, and Mancera as a brand is also just in general a very good way to get into niche perfumery. They are generally seen as the best beginner niche brand, I think, by a lot of people. And that concludes this video, guys. What are your thoughts on the fragrances I've listed today? If you're someone who started getting into niche, what would you have recommended to people or to your younger self for getting into niche perfumery? What are the best beginner niche fragrances out there in your opinion? Let us know in the comments down below, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our previous video on affordable niche fragrances, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.